The sliding doors of the Grand Meridian hissed open, releasing a rush of cold air scented with vanilla and polished marble. I stepped inside, clutching my faded duffel bag, a bag I'd carried through college, job interviews, and too many bus rides to count. My sister, Hannah, stood in the center of the lobby, perfectly styled in her designer dress, chatting with her friends like she owned the place. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The second she spotted me, her smile froze. "Oh no," she muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. "You actually came." Her friends turned. The laughter that followed was sharp and cruel, slicing through the hum of piano music. I kept walking, ignoring the way her friend Melissa covered her mouth to hide a smirk. "Hannah," I said, trying to sound calm. "Mom said dinner's at 8. Hannah glanced at my scuffed sneakers, then my old duffel. "Dinner's on the rooftop, Emma. You need a reservation to even breathe up there." She tilted her head with a mocking smile. "They don't let delivery girls pass the lobby." Her friends erupted in laughter again. I felt my throat tighten, my chest burn. "I'm not here to prove anything," I managed to say. "I'm just here for Mom." But Hannah wasn't done. She reached out, grabbed my duffel, and tossed it aside. The sound of it hitting the marble echoed through the hall. "You can't afford anything here, Emma. Just go home before you embarrass yourself." For a moment, I actually turned toward the exit. The weight of humiliation pressed against my back, every pair of eyes in that lobby judging me. But before I could take another step, a deep voice called out, firm, urgent. "Miss Parker?" I turned. The hotel manager was striding across the marble floor, his expression stunned and apologetic. "I am so sorry for the confusion," he said, stopping right in front of me. "We've been expecting you. Your penthouse suite is ready. The staff has been briefed to prepare everything according to your preferences." The laughter died instantly. You could hear a pin drop. Hannah blinked, her painted smile collapsing. "Penthouse what?" The manager nodded respectfully at me. "Ma'am, if you'll follow me, I'll have your luggage brought up immediately." I bent down, picked up my old duffel, and looked right at Hannah. "Seems like I can afford something here," I said softly. And as I followed the manager toward the golden elevator, I didn't need to look back to know every single person in that lobby, including my sister, was staring in stunned silence. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing a hallway lined with gold sconces and thick white carpet. My reflection in the mirror walls looked like someone else, still me, but steadier, sharper. The manager, Mr. Dawson, led me down the hall with quiet respect. "Your suite has been prepared, Miss Parker. The owner's office sent word earlier that you'd be arriving tonight," he said. I frowned slightly. "The owner?" "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Bennett mentioned you might stop by. He wanted everything perfect." My pulse quickened, though I kept my face neutral. "Thank you," I said softly. As soon as the door to the penthouse opened, a rush of warm air and ocean light filled the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering skyline, and fresh, white lilies sat in crystal vases. The suite was modern, elegant, nothing like the tiny apartments I used to live in. I stepped inside slowly. Every corner, every polished surface whispered of success, of something earned through years of silence and struggle. The irony wasn't lost on me. Hannah was downstairs laughing at a sister she once called hopeless. I took a deep breath and smiled faintly. Let's see how she handles the rooftop dinner. 2 hours later, I arrived at the rooftop restaurant wearing a fitted navy gown, simple, graceful, and gifted by the concierge. My hair fell in soft curls, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the forgotten sibling. The host at the elevator recognized my name immediately. "Miss Parker, your family is waiting." As I walked through the sea of chandeliers and string lights, the music dimmed slightly. People turned. Even the waitstaff straightened. The murmurs followed like ripples. At the center table sat Hannah, her fiancé Daniel, and our mother, Linda. Hannah's laughter cut through the air until she saw me. Her fork froze midair. "Emma," she said, eyes narrowing. "You actually made it?" I smiled. "You said dinner was at 8. I wouldn't miss Mom's birthday." Mom's face softened with visible relief. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." "Thank you, Mom." Hannah forced a laugh, clearly uncomfortable. "Well, I suppose the hotel finally let you sneak in somehow. Who'd you charm at the front desk?" Her friends chuckled around the table, waiting for me to stumble. "I didn't sneak in," I said calmly. "I was invited." "By who?" she pressed. "The janitor?" I didn't answer. Instead, I turned to the waiter, who appeared beside me. "Could you let Mr. Bennett know I've arrived?" The waiter nodded and hurried away. Hannah's laughter faltered. "You know the owner?" I didn't reply. The silence was heavy enough to make her squirm. Mom leaned closer. "Emma, dear, what's going on?" Before I could answer, the rooftop doors opened again. A tall man in a dark gray suit stepped out, mid-40s, composed, powerful. The owner, Mr. Bennett, walked straight to me with a genuine smile. "Miss Parker," he said warmly, shaking my hand. "Glad you could make it." I hoped the suite was satisfactory. "It was perfect," I replied. Hannah's wine glass trembled slightly as she stared. "You know her?" she stammered. Mr. Bennett turned to her. "Know her? Miss Parker is one of our primary investors. Without her contribution, this hotel expansion wouldn't have happened." The table went silent. Even the nearby guests turned to look. Mom covered her mouth. "Emma, you invested in the Grand Meridian?" I nodded slowly. "Last year. I was offered a minority partnership after one of my design firms helped rebrand their interiors." Hannah blinked rapidly. "Design firms? Since when do you?" "Since the day you told me I'd never make anything of myself," I said evenly. "I took the one talent I had and turned it into something real. Every late night, every job rejection, every moment you laughed at me, it all led to this." The words weren't angry. They were quiet, factual, final. Hannah's fiancé shifted uncomfortably. "You never told me your sister was, successful." "She wasn't," Hannah snapped, voice cracking. "She's lying." Mr. Bennett looked politely confused. "Lying? The contracts are under her company, Parker Studio Designs." All color drained from her face. "You mean that, Parker?" I smiled faintly. Surprise. Mom reached across the table and took my hand, eyes misty. "Emma, I had no idea. You should have told us." I wanted to, but every time I tried, Hannah said it didn't matter what I was doing unless it was rich enough to impress her. Hannah slammed her napkin down, her voice trembling. "You think you're better than me now?" I met her eyes. "No. I just stopped needing your approval." For the first time in my life, I saw something break behind her arrogance, a small, scared flicker of realization that the power she used to hold over me was gone. Mr. Bennett cleared his throat politely. "Dinner's on the house tonight. Consider it my thanks for helping make this hotel what it is." "Thank you," I said softly. As I rose from the table, Hannah's voice cracked behind me. "You think this changes anything? You'll still always be the poor girl who wanted to fit in." I paused, turned back, and smiled. "You're right, Hannah. I was that girl. But now I just own the place you're pretending to belong in." Her expression froze, her hand tightening around the tablecloth as I walked away, calm, steady, unshaken. The rooftop buzzed again, whispers chasing me as I disappeared into the elevator. But I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The elevator doors closed behind me, and the world above, the whispers, the frozen looks, the hum of disbelief, faded into silence. My reflection stared back from the mirrored walls, and for a brief second, I almost didn't recognize her. The woman looking back wasn't the timid, apologetic sister anymore. She was composed, grounded, but inside, my chest still pulsed with a tremor of emotion, years of buried humiliation clawing for air. Back in the penthouse, the city glowed beneath the night sky like scattered fire. I stood near the window, slipped off my heels, and exhaled. For years, Hannah's voice had echoed in my head, mocking, belittling, reminding me that I wasn't good enough. But tonight, that echo had finally gone silent. My phone buzzed on the counter. Hannah. I stared at the name, thumb hovering above the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity won. Emma, she said, voice shaky the moment I answered. We need to talk. I think everything's already been said. Her sigh came through the line. Please. I'm downstairs. I hesitated, then said quietly, Fine. When I stepped out of the elevator and into the quiet hotel lounge, Hannah was there. No makeup now, her red dress slightly wrinkled, her eyes red. She looked small, almost fragile, sitting by the fountain. I didn't come here to fight, I said, folding my arms. I know. Her voice cracked. I just didn't know how to face you. Silence stretched between us. The distant sound of soft jazz filled the space. I didn't mean to humiliate you earlier, she continued. It's just you always acted like you were fine being invisible. I thought you'd never change. I gave a small laugh, though it wasn't funny. You didn't think I could change. You liked having me beneath you, didn't you? It made you feel taller. Her eyes watered. That's not fair. It's completely fair, I replied quietly. You pushed me out of everything, family trips, holidays, even Mom's birthday planning. You made me believe I was nothing. And you enjoyed it. She shook her head. I was jealous, Emma. You had things I didn't, peace, decency, a heart that didn't need validation from strangers. I hid behind status because it made me feel like someone. Her confession hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't used to hearing honesty from her. I worked so hard just to be seen, she whispered. But even with all the money, all the attention, I felt empty. Then you walk in tonight, and suddenly everyone's looking at you. It broke something inside me. For a moment, I just stared at her. The Hannah I knew would have never admitted weakness. But now, her voice trembled with something real. I didn't come back for revenge, I said softly. I came for Mom. You're the one who turned it into a battlefield. I know. Her lip quivered. And I'm sorry, Emma. I really am. I let the words hang in the air, testing how they felt. They were late, but they were real. Finally, I nodded. I don't hate you. I just don't need you to define me anymore. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I deserved that. You don't deserve punishment, I said gently. You deserve to learn. Her shoulders shook, a quiet sob escaping. She whispered, You've changed so much. Pain does that, I replied. It teaches you who you are when no one believes in you. For a long time, we just sat there. Two sisters who'd spent years walking opposite paths, suddenly forced to see the truth in each other. When we finally stood, Hannah wiped her eyes. I'll fix things with Mom. She saw what happened tonight. She's devastated. Let her rest, I said. She's been caught between us too long. As I turned to leave, Hannah called out, Emma? I paused. I'm proud of you, she said. I don't think I ever said that before. For the first time, those words didn't sound fake. I smiled faintly. Thank you. Back upstairs, I poured myself a glass of water and walked to the balcony. The city air was cool and alive, the sound of traffic rising like a heartbeat. My phone buzzed again, this time, a text from Mr. Bennett. Tomorrow's meeting at 9 a.m. The board is eager to discuss your next project. Congratulations again, Miss Parker. I smiled, setting the phone down. This hotel, this symbol of luxury, had been the same place where I was once treated like an outsider. Now, I was sitting in the penthouse, no longer the invisible sister, but the woman who had built her own ground to stand on. Still, the night didn't feel triumphant. It felt peaceful. Not because I'd humiliated Hannah, but because I'd finally closed the door on years of self-doubt. I looked down at the street below, watching the reflection of neon lights ripple across the glass. Somewhere deep inside, the little girl who used to hide in corners and avoid mirrors whispered softly, We made it. My eyes stung and I let them. Redemption didn't roar. It breathed quietly, like relief. And as the city hummed beneath me, I realized this wasn't about wealth or revenge anymore. It was about finally coming home to myself. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows, spilling gold across the marble floors of the penthouse. I hadn't slept much, but I didn't need to. There was a calm inside me I hadn't felt in years, a quiet kind of victory that didn't need an audience. The doorbell chimed. When I opened it, a hotel attendant stood there holding an envelope. "This was left at the front desk for you, Miss Parker," he said politely. "Thank you." The envelope was sealed with elegant handwriting I recognized instantly, Mom's. I sat by the window and opened it carefully. "My dear Emma, I couldn't sleep last night. I saw everything that happened. I saw how Hannah looked at you when the truth came out, and I saw how you handled it. With grace, not pride. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Not for the money, not for the success, but for the way you never let bitterness destroy your heart. Your father would have been proud too. Love, Mom." I pressed the letter against my chest, blinking back tears. For years, I had fought to be seen, not realizing that the only validation that mattered was this quiet acknowledgement from the person who knew the whole journey. My phone buzzed again, this time a message from Hannah. "Heading home. I'll visit Mom later. I'll try to do better." No excuses. No sarcasm. Just raw honesty. That alone was enough. I stepped onto the balcony, the cool air brushing against my hair. Down below, taxis honked, and people hurried along the sidewalks, living, moving, trying. Just like I once did. It hit me how strange life could be. The same city that once felt too big, too cruel, was now the place that held everything I'd built. And the same sister, who once tore me down, had unknowingly helped me find the strength to rise. A knock interrupted my thoughts. When I turned, Mr. Bennett stood by the doorway, holding a folder. "Morning, Miss Parker," he greeted with a warm smile. "Just wanted to go over the contract before the board meeting." "Of course," I said, motioning him in. As we discussed details, he looked around the suite. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "most people who reach your level come here demanding recognition. You didn't. You just let your work speak for you." I smiled. When you've spent half your life being underestimated, silence becomes your best ally. He nodded approvingly. "That's rare." When he left, I stood by the window once more, the city stretching endlessly below. My reflection caught the faintest curve of a smile, not the proud kind, but the kind that comes after survival. I picked up my old duffel bag from the corner, the same one Hannah had tossed aside the night before. I ran my fingers over its worn fabric. It didn't look like much, but it had carried my entire story, my failures, my resilience, my dreams. I couldn't throw it away. Instead, I zipped it shut and placed it neatly inside the wardrobe, a reminder of where I came from. Later that evening, I met Mom downstairs for tea. Her smile was tired but genuine. "You handled everything beautifully," she said softly. "You didn't humiliate anyone. You just let the truth do the talking." "That was enough," I said. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "That's what strength looks like, Emma. Quiet, steady, and kind." The golden sunset reflected off the hotel glass behind her, painting the lobby in warm light. I realized then that the story wasn't about revenge. It was about rediscovery. Hannah would have to face her own lessons. Mom would finally find peace between her daughters, and I had already found mine. As the evening deepened, I walked outside, breathing in the cool air. The city hummed around me, alive, unforgiving, yet strangely gentle now. I smiled to myself. Once, I was the girl everyone laughed at. Now, I was the woman they whispered about. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Because I already had.